Hello. So I kind of want to just address like a question I get asked a lot about guild raids. So it's well known at this point that the Stone Cold line is the best line for the guild boss, right? And Stone Cold is the right. If you go, it's like I said, is the this line here. Like I said, this was to level 150 boss. It did 100 million damage. This is also the best line against level 160 boss. Right, I had a guy in my guild who did 132 million damage with this exact line to the 160 boss. So this is the go-to line. This is the best line to use against the boss, but you are allowed to use 5 different lines. Right, and the problem is a lot of people have is like, what should you use for the second line? What should your second line be? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And like I said, we're just going to explain what your options are for like why we don't talk about second lines, I guess. Because like it's just really like, so we have this line that is really good. Like you could do 9 figures with this line against level 160 boss. Like I did this is a 150 boss. I'm not that strong. My heroes are a lot weaker than a lot of people, but you notice like all these were 150. Like you notice like none of my other teams even came close. I mean, I had a couple that made it to 7 figures, but none of them came close to my 9 figure here. Like this was my second best one with this twins line. And this has a lot to do with like the top of the video. Like, what is the second best line is like what a lot of people are asking. And that the honest truth is that there really isn't one. I mean, you might be able to find a line that can post 8 figures to level 160 boss. You know, like certain the lower levels, you can find some lines that could do some decent numbers. But once you get to level 160, I mean, you know, if you can find anything that posts like 7 figures, you're probably doing good. There's probably a couple lines that will do 10 figures, but you need a lot of investment. So we're just going to talk about this. Like after you use those heroes, like you can't reuse heroes. So you can't use Sebastian or Isaac or Nebula or Martha or Jew again. So once these 5 heroes are off the board, you have to find another option. So Isaac's a good tank. Like other good tank options are Aurora, Alvanor, Marcus, and Rufus. So these are the 5 best tanks for the raids. Like if you want to do the raid boss, like so if you want tanks for the other groups, it would be Alvanor, Aurora, Marcus, Rufus. Those are going to be your best bets to lead your other teams. And what those teams might look like is mostly speculative because we haven't been able to find actually good teams for that level of the boss. I mean, they're just, for the most part, there just isn't one. Theoretically, there are, like I said, there are some people who have been able to get, you know, okay numbers. Like nothing will come close to the 9 figures. Like you're not going to find another 9-figure team. Another 9-figure team against Osh is just not a thing that can exist. But like I said, Alvanor though, like he can buff magic attack a lot when he's tanking. Like my Alvanor's pretty weak, but he can buff magic attack like a champ. Like if we go back to my logs here, right, I have a line where I led with Alvanor. Right, this one, like I said, these heroes are pretty weak. But I still did 1 million damage to the level 150 boss with this line. Right, Alright, so let's just speed this one up. I'll always say, so you see how he's get his magic attack buffs? Because this is all basic attacks, so he's pretty much invincible to defense tiers, and he gets to buff his magic attacks. We get a lot of magic attack buffs going with Alvanor's tank. And there's groups that can use this. I just don't have a lot of heroes leveled, but I bet you could make a good Alvanor team. Maybe possibly some kind of Grove Keeper team with Kai and Thea. Or then maybe you put maybe it is Orion Dorian, maybe it's Maya or something. But you want to find a hero that can really take advantage of the magic attack buffing that he does. Like I said, Maya did a lot, like I said, you know, kind of did a lot of damage there. She did main source damage. Like, so maybe a hero like Maya, maybe Heidi. Like I said, you could put Kai and Thea with Alvanor, maybe do the Grove Keepers. The buff that you could buy is pretty bad. I don't think I would recommend buying this Grove Keeper buff, though. Resilient Grove Keepers. Grants per buff, there's 3 Grove Keepers. Each chamber has 15% damage when defense spheres collide with the wormhole. Like, Ideally, you don't have defense spheres surviving that long, so this is kind of a bad buff even under the best circumstances, and this at most only affects one team. But, the reality is there isn't a second good team. Like, that's the cold truth. There isn't a second team, and if you want to invest in a second team, like, are you a literal millionaire and is willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars, like USD, United States currency, tens of thousands of dollars on this game developing a second team because, it's like you'll literally cost you millions and millions of emeralds to get a second team to where they could actually compete at that level. Like, you're not going to get anywhere near the performance Stone Cold line could get you. Like, here's the thing, like, until you got these 5 heroes, until all 5 of these heroes, you have them all red +2 and ascension rank 5, right? Like, so you should keep working on them. If your goal is to do better in guild raids, keep focusing on these 5 heroes. Like, these are the guys you got to focus on. Wait till they're red +2 and ascension rank 5 before you worry about team 2, because there isn't a second best team. That's the cold hard truth. Theoretically there could be a second team, but to get there you will have to spend a lot of money on this game to actually have it be effective at level 160. So if you are a literal millionaire, want to spend tens of thousands of dollars doing that, that's fine. But for the other 99.9% of us, like myself, I don't think it's practical. There's better things, like there's better ways to play this game. Like I said, just focus on having one good team for the raid, which is this line called Stone Cold. The pets actually have to be set like this. You need Oliver on Isaac and Albus on Sebastian, and then the rest of them set in. Generally, you need Albus as your pet, but like at 160, like if your line's a bit weaker, sometimes it's better to do Axel, but only if your line's weak. I mean, ideally you use Axel, but I have seen some people have some success using the Axel line instead of Albus on the 160 boss just because their heroes are weaker. But once you have these heroes maxed out, Albus is the right choice, and Albus is the right choice on most of the lower levels. And for your lower teams, sometimes the best you could do with your lines 2 through 5 is just to survive long enough so Albus can use his ult. Because Albus can do a lot of damage on his own. Like, we can go back to my logs again. Right, so you look at all these, Albus did 243k, that was the main source of damage. It's just mostly you just tried to survive long enough for Albus to get a hit in. Because these are my chump teams. These heroes are not going to do much. But it's just to buy enough time for Albus to get an ult off. And sometimes that's the best you can do. And that's kind of one of the main reasons you want to use Albus for this, is because he does a lot of damage. But also, when we talked, like I said, because he does a lot of damage with his ults. Without pretty much unassisted, and if you have pure damage going, you can actually buff his damage up quite a bit with his theme, with his bone buff here. And there's actually one of those buffs, the best buff for this is called Healing Converter. This allows extra healing to turn into pure damage against defense spheres, and this pure damage ends up buffing Albus, so there's a lot of ways to have Albus do a lot of damage to the boss. And Albus has his theme where, pure damage, he adds it to his ults. Right, if you aren't familiar with Albus, he has his concentration. Breath of the Ancient now takes 3 seconds to charge and gains bonus damage, depending on all pure damage dealt to the enemy while the skill is charging. So it could do an extra 200% of the pure damage. So if the other heroes do 1,000,000 pure damage, he'll do an extra 2,000,000 damage. So that's a pretty big buff. So that's why Healing Converter in Albus is such a thing on this event. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video informative. Thank you for watching.